know I say this with every video, but this is a really important topic, and it's one that we don't talk enough about in our industry. We know that M&A activity continues to be at an all-time high. Every day we're reading news articles in our industry about private equity company taking a minority stake in wealth management firms and firms merging together, or, buying one another. And what tends to dominate those articles is information about the valuation of the company being acquired, the AUM, and maybe we'll hear some information about the new executive leadership team that's coming out of a wirehouse. And so we don't talk enough or focus really at all on the advisor seller experience and what's playing for the advisor and his or her team as they move through this transition. Now, to be fair, we probably wouldn't put that in a press release or news article, but even behind the scenes as an industry, we sort of overlook, and I think to some extent we think, money and capital and putting a attractive offer in front of the advisor is really all it takes to close a deal. And I would say perhaps that is true, but the firms that create lasting partnerships with that retiring advisor and his or her succession plan, maybe is in place or not, are the firms that really, really are tuned in with what the advisor is experiencing, with what language the advisor needs to hear to quell those concerns, even if they're not articulating them. And I will tell you, as somebody who's been in the conversation, now as a potential buyer of advisory businesses, and prior to that as a consultant to advisors on both sides of the table, and I don't know, candidly, if it's because it's mostly men in the room, but there is so much that is overlooked, behaviors and actions, language, tone of voice, that I can tell buyers / suits coming in with a check are not thinking about or paying attention to. The number of advisors I speak to who have taken a deal, who've left a wire, who've gone from wire to wire, who've gone RIA, the number that have done that and been unhappy with how they feel post-sale or post-transition is unbelievable, hence why I'm recording the video. And so there's a couple things I think we all need to learn and think about, and I'm passionate about this because if we are in the business to serve people, to me, that means not just the consumer and investor, but the professionals who advise them, i.e. the advisors. Okay, so I'm gonna just rattle off a couple things, feelings, emotions, experiences that advisor may or likely is feeling while they're in the conversation about selling a part or all of their book or joining the firm. The first two sort of tie together, and I'm generalizing, folks. Not everybody is going to feel all these things, but many are going to be fearing a loss of control or experiencing a fear over what's next. And the way we can sort of empathize with and think about that is most advisors who, and this is true for most advisors who are advisor practitioners / owner operators, meaning they've been the primary revenue generator and primary decision maker in the business. They became successful because of their unique talent and ability to rainmake. They stayed successful because of their ability to corral people around a common mission and vision, regardless of whether they say they don't like, running the business piece of it. That has created joy and fulfillment for them over the years as well. And so as they're going through this transition, they are likely going to lose 50% of their responsibilities, which sounds great on paper, right? They don't have to be the primary revenue generator anymore, or they don't have to run operations. But number one, that creates a gap in how they actually spend their time that is surprisingly difficult to fill when you're actually there. And then the second piece is that these activities, I know I talk a lot about, the dopamine, but we're taking away 50% of the things that have brought the advisor some sense of purpose. And so my recommendation always is gauge where the advisor is at. This is where being trained as a coach and asking powerful questions is super important. How does the advisor envision his day-to-day or her day-to-day looking and feeling like? What's going to hinder their ability to get from where they are now to there? What's going to help? How can you help as a partner? Advisors won't necessarily, or people won't necessarily come out and say, I'm scared of losing control. But notice the questions that the advisor is asking, especially as it relates to who has influence over their team, who makes decisions about money and budgets. And so even if, again, you're taking away a lot of those responsibilities for the benefit of the advisor, it's still very scary to think about a world in which you don't necessarily have to have that say. So that's the first thing. The second thing is an insecurity over a lack of education in the space. If I had to rank these, I would say this maybe would be this would be in the top. Especially for advisors who've grew up within one captive system or have grown up at one firm their entire career, the reality is it's possible that they don't know a lot about the M&A process or M&A broadly, or what it takes to sell their business, especially if the advisor has gone out and independent. If you're within a wirehouse or you're within a firm that dictates, valuation, and there's a set of successors, if you will, it's a little bit different than if you're out independently looking to formulate a deal with some sort of seller, whether it's a firm that looks like yours or a different type of firm. That is incredibly overwhelming. And what I've seen a lot of times is advisors become overwhelmed by the process. The firms they are talking to are so focused on trying to transact, because a lot of these firms, especially the non-wealth management firms, these are people looking to transact. They're not looking to come in and get to know your clients and celebrate your spouse's birthday. If it's a private equity company, they're looking to make an investment for a cash flow and return. And so, the buyer may be less likely to sort of talk through objectively what this process looks like, what your options are. And so something that's very important to me is taking any advisor's call who wants to simply talk about what their options are as it relates to being independent or monetizing. I don't care if an advisor joins Journey or not. Obviously, we want them to. But as a business owner, it's critical that before you make that decision, you understand the various structures, what it would mean pre, during, and post minority stake sale or complete sale of the business with each of the partners you're talking to. Who's going to be involved? Who are you going to talk to on a daily basis? Et cetera, et cetera. Okay. The fourth thing is a fear to ask questions that are actually important. And here's what I mean by this. And again, I don't know if it's because of the demographic profile of the majority of attendees in these meetings, but I've noticed that advisors shy away from the things that end up becoming incredibly important and apparent immediately after the sale. And so an example might be if a firm is joining a larger organization and the advisor is selling a minority stake, or maybe they're selling a majority stake and they're looking to really phase out. What are the maybe you don't want expectations anymore. If you're a 60-year-old advisor who's grinded it out in the system and you're just looking to have things run like a well-oiled machine and have your team taken care of, maybe you don't want activity expectations and growth and run rates that you have to adhere to. There are firms that will actually dictate what's required of you, even though this is sort of your last phase in the business life cycle. Asking questions about culture, about family members, about people's commitment to the organization, really, really important questions when you're looking to partner with somebody who your clients are going to be working with. And I don't hear advisors talk about that enough and actually ask to speak to the people in the organization that they're going to be working with and dealing with every day. Remember that the people they are putting in front of you to close the deal are their best salespeople. You should not, and sometimes that salesperson is also the person who you're going to be working with, but most of the time, or maybe sometimes it won't be. Talk to the people you actually will be dealing with and see how you get along with that. Fifth thing, and I'll go through these quickly, ego. And I say this not in a negative. When you have built a business from scratch because of your X factor, and you've had your firm or an entire industry calling you a successful unicorn your whole career, you're going to come into that meeting wanting the people at the other ends of the table to know that you know what's up. You've built this business, you're successful. And so the person on the other side of that conversation should honor and acknowledge that. These meetings often turn into, sort of ego contests, and, even sometimes as a woman in the room, acknowledging that and allowing the advisor to have their moment to shine, and perhaps continue that part of their discussion with somebody who is more their peer and who's sort of seen and felt the same things in the business for the past 30 years. That's perfectly fair. And I think it's important to be emotionally intelligent enough to think about what the advisor needs in that moment.